Broadcasting live from a small island off the coast of Costa Rica is the OGGM at 8:22 in the morning on this, the 9th day of September in the year of our Lord Steve the Cat. It's about 76 degrees and sunny. It's a perfect fall day. And today we're talking about random tables. Random tables seem to becoming a thing, like an actual ingrained mechanic to games. Okay, fine. Yes, there's always been random tables, always. I mean, you go back to Appendix N in the very first random tables. But random tables were also, for a long time, they were and then. I mean, sure, you had random generation games like V&V or stuff, and random tables that ran concurrently with other systems. But for the most part, random tables, especially in the fantasy, were either a behind-the-scenes mechanic or a and-then mechanic. You know, here's a tool to help you if you can't come up with ideas. You know, you need a quick dungeon tomorrow and you don't have anything prepared. Here's some random tables. So they've never been an ingrained mechanic as part of game design in at least fantasy. Obviously, there's a lot of randomly generated superhero games, but in other systems. But yeah, mainly fantasy, especially D&D-esque fantasy, has always been there's a core fantasy engine, and you can sit down over the weekend and build your little dungeon, but there's random tables to help you, and there's always been extensions on the random table. We can go through the interweb and find hundreds of random tables for anything you can possibly think of, and even a few you probably never thought of. There's probably a random table to generate it. And I'm not just talking like naughty stuff. They're just like random sandwich topping. I mean, it's out there. But lately, if my tired brain can finally focus on the subject, it seems like random tables are becoming a core mechanic. And I'm not sure why. Random tables played heavily in the core mechanics and the building of Shadowdark. Random tables play heavily in our friend Hank's new game, Crown and Skull. In fact, of the 320 pages, it sounds like at least 70% of that is random tables. In fact, one of the selling points of Crown and Skull is you could sit down completely unprepared and just start running the adventure based upon the random tables that you start rolling. It is a very ingrained mechanic into the actual play of Crown and Skull. It's also sounding like some of the other games we're seeing that are getting play tested right now and coming down the pike that people are excited about, like Dragon Slayer, are heavily relying on random tables as a core mechanic. Now, I could offer some deep philosophical reason as to why it seems to be more focused on random tables as a core mechanic, but actually, I don't know, other than just sheer laziness. Is it just we think that you're getting so lazy as creators that you need all these tools? Is it just that it's too expensive to make modules and supplements now? So instead, we're just going to give you some random tables and that's your support? I don't know. I don't know what the thought pattern is, why random tables are now becoming an ingrained mechanic. You could blame it on the whole, well, in the old days, we played this way. That might be it. You know, this misunderstanding of how 80s gaming was played, Appendix N-centric gaming. You know, there's a lot of, well, that's how we played in the 80s. But when you actually remember the 80s, like I do, it's like, well, no, that's really not how we played. So maybe that's it. Maybe people are trying to recapture that feel of the gonzo randomness of Appendix N that apparently we relied heavily on in the 80s. I don't know. I honestly don't know why the collective unconsciousness of the gaming community seems to be thinking that random table centric as a core mechanic like Crown and Skull are a thing. I leave it to you, my humble viewers, if you have any idea. Like I said, I tossed out a couple reasons. So I was going to do one just on wandering monsters. I'll still probably do that one later on, but this one is just random tables and generated. So that begs the question, are they a help or are they a hindrance? Now, they're a help if you have nothing planned, especially now that the interweb has so many. If you know you've got a day to prep, even a couple hours to prep, and you're just at a loss, you can use random tables to quickly come up with at least the starting threads of an adventure. You know, I mean, Do you need the random table to help you generate every single solitary thing that are on the shelves in that store or in that dungeon room? No, probably not. But if you've got no ideas, sure, it's a great tool ahead of time to roll a few things and go, okay, I need a plot, bam, monsters, I need a thing, bam, dungeon, I need a couple rooms for the dungeon, roll. Okay, I've got my basic framework between myself, this framework, and the players. When we play later on today or tomorrow, we can run with it. So that's when random tables work. If you know ahead of time that you can start using them. But at the table, which Crown and Skull seems to be, at least the way it reads right now, heavily relies on you just sitting down, game bell goes start, and you're just randomly generating as the players. Is that a help or a hindrance? I kind of feel they're more of a hindrance than a help, because that is a lot of time and energy you're spending looking at the random table, flipping through the book, trying to find the right random table, and then adjudicating the result of said random table into the story that's already started. That's when it becomes a hindrance, because that's time. That's time that you're not engaged. It's time that the DM is taking away from looking at the players and looking at the table and whatever, to looking through the book and going flip, random, flip, random, flip, random, and then trying to make that make sense. Why is there a clown with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in this dungeon that's inhabited by undead? And then when you get too heavy on randoms, you get weird dungeons where you have like 175 bugbears in a 15 by 15 room. And you're like, okay, math, yeah, there's no way that the 115 bugbears could fit in a 15 by 15 room. Or, hey, here's some, undead hating priests, and they're right next to a room that randomly generated undead, and yet they're not fighting with each other. Yeah, because that makes totally sense, but random. That's when the hindrance is. Oh, here's that DM Kirk. I swear this guy's stalking me. Yeah, ahead of time, great. I totally agree. Ahead of time, if you don't have anything planned, if you need to generate some wandering encounters, wandering monsters while they're moving through, great, because you don't want more than like a 1 or 2 pages on your table next to you, or even if you've got an app that does it, you want it to be quick. You don't want to take the attention away from the table for longer than a minute or two, because then the grinding starts, and then the people are just losing interest, and then they're just sitting there playing with their thumbs and fiddling with their fidget toys or whatever, because your 5, 10, 20 minutes has passed as you're going through this randomness at the table. So that's when it grinds down, and that's why I don't understand it becoming an intrinsic part of the rules. It should be a behind the scenes thing that you use ahead of time. Villains, vigilantes, you randomly generate your characters, but you do it ahead of time, and then you start playing the character. You're not randomly generating the characters while you're playing. Dungeons and Dragons, you randomly generate the stats, and then you start going, and then usually there is a pre-written script that the DM is running you through, and you're doing your things, and then you're going through the dungeon, and there's a random wandering monster table, and the players do something to generate a random wandering monster encounter, and then the DM rolls, but that's only a couple seconds. That's 10, 15, 20 seconds for him to check, oh, okay, yes, 15 Sturges. But yeah, so that's fine. And that's fine. Those two scenarios are fine. But again, we get to the utter time waste mechanic of the entire game, or a huge core component of the game being random tables. And that's what I don't understand. And I don't think at that point it becomes a help. I think it's more of a hindrance. Not only is it a hindrance for the DM because he's wasting time and energy and flipping through the pages and then trying to make this random string of nonsense into a semi-coherent encounter / story / plot, but it's also a hindrance to the players because they're losing their involvement as you've taken them out of the game and put them into a random number generator. And random number generators are kind of boring. If it helps the game, great. Every time I use this magic item, there's a random chance whimsy happens. That's great. They made a noise. I need to randomly check if that noise attracts wandering monsters. That's great. I don't know what's in this town. I'll roll 3 things to decide and then let them, whatever. Sure. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 seconds, a minute, even 2 minutes. Anything more than that, it becomes a hindrance. Ahead of time, using it to fill in the thing and design things and having random things to happen if they're just wandering, again, great. But just, I feel like I keep getting back to this, probably because my brain hasn't turned on. I do not understand the idea behind Crown and Skull and these other games that seem to be depending upon random tables as an intricate part of the mechanics as you're playing. If the dungeon master is only 1 dice roll ahead of you, I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't think it is. It should be a tool to help you. Random tables to build characters are things people tend to dislike them. I think it takes away from player choice. You lie! I love randomly generated characters. My last 5e character was completely randomly generated. I love running randomly generated superheroes. It's fun. It's my favorite, but I'm a goofball. I love DCC because of the randomness of the spells and of the grind. But that's, again, all intrinsic to the mechanics of DCC, but not a major flagpole of DCC. You could run DCC and not use the random tables. They're a helpful tool sitting on the side, which is what they're supposed to be. But when it becomes a intrinsic part of the mechanics, and I'm going to stop now because I think I've said the same thing 4 times because I'm obviously way more tired than I thought I was. That's when I don't get it. I don't get it. Because then it just feels like more of a hindrance, a handicap. If I'm just entirely generating everything randomly and I'm only 1 page ahead of the players at my table, it doesn't feel like it's helping me. It feels like it's hindering me. And I just don't get why it's becoming a thing. So if we, circle back to the original premise of this rambling nonsense, why is it people think this is now a necessary ingrained mechanic? Is it because they think that's how we used to play in the 80s? Or is it because they think, well, people's brains operate much faster now than they did, so they can process this information way quicker, so it's not that much of a hindrance? Or do they think, well, people are lazy? I mean, I don't feel like making 100 modules for this game. I'm just going to present you with 100 random tables. You can make your own modules, and I'll move on to my next game. I don't know. The OGGM doesn't know. The OGGM can make some guesses like he did, but he doesn't know. I also don't know why I'm talking in third person. I guess I'm really tired today. But hey, look, it's DM Kurt. Did you know my upcoming product is pretty much dedicated to DM Kurt? That's right. I've got a new product coming out. It's called Good Guys Always Lose. It should be available by mid-October. It is the second supplement for Wretched Vigilantes in the Wretched Vigilantes trilogy of Bad Guys Never Win, Good Guys Always Lose, and the forthcoming Henchmen Sing the Blues. It'll be available on the Red Room and on Giant Slayer and on Big Geek Emporium as soon as the editor finishes laying it out. So yeah, and a large part of it is, actually 80% of it is because of DM Kurt. So when it comes out, if you don't like it, blame him. That's it for today. Let me know what your thoughts on random tables are. Are they a help? Are they a hindrance? Is it just a crutch? Is it something you like? Is it something you dislike? What's the strangest random table you've ever found online that isn't X-rated? Let me know what you're thinking. I'm the OGGM. Please remember to subscribe. Talk to you later.